Good day, gamers. Let's launch some projectiles. Okay, so we're going to be working primarily with the player controller script. So, again, go to your scripts folder and then open up that the player controller script. Okay, so last time we coded the projectile script. So we need to basically make it so that anytime a player presses a certain button on their keyboard, we need to create a projectile, make sure it's facing the right way, and then launch it in the correct direction. So what we're going to do is, and I've got this code in Schoology. Uh, you're going to go ahead and start off, and I'm going to explain this code, okay? And then, but stick around for after the explanation because we're going to need to do some things with the layer matrix to make sure that we can make this work. So the explanation. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and for me, I have it's line 29. I'm going to go ahead and declare a variable of the type game object and name it projectile prefab. Okay. Then in my update function, I'm going to create a if statement that says, hey, if I press the letter C, I want to call a method called launch. Now, I know it's weird. You're like, wait, didn't we already do that? Yes, you did. But there's a projectile method called launch, and then there's a player controller called launch. So if we go ahead here, I have this right below it. I start off, we're going to declare a variable of the type game object and call it projectile object. We're then going to have that variable called projectile object refer to an instance of, and to instantiate means to breathe life into, sort of bring into being. When you do that, you need to provide some information. You need to say, okay, what are we instantiating? Okay, so projectile prefab, that's all the way up top. Remember, we declared that variable. Once with instantiation, we have to say, it's not just one thing to say, like, I summon. You need to say where. Computers are black and white. You need to say where you want to put this thing. So we go ahead and we're saying, I want to instantiate an object of the that I in this case here it'd be of the projectile object class. I'm then going to provide the where. So this here, rigid body 2D dot position. Okay, so starting as far as like, where do I need to start as far as a place to begin my positioning? I want to take the current position of the player. I want to then add going up the y-axis. Okay, so vector 2 dot up along the y-axis. Multiply that by 0.5f, and then this last part, I'm sorry folks, this is just this is referring to rotation. um Make sure it's not rotating. Sorry, I quaternion, I guess. So we go ahead here, this is going to refer to rotation, my apologies. Now some actual interesting coding here. So we're going to go ahead then, and we're now going to declare a variable of the type projectile that's going to be pointing at the object that we just instantiated. And not only that, it's going to be pointing at the script that is attached to the object that we just instantiated. And so now this variable is going to call this launch, and it's going to provide the following information: the current move direction, which way is the character facing, and then the number 300. That is going to be related to the force. Now, this might be something that we change. Like, I might add this when I give you your project. I might make this a public variable so that you can configure how fast you want your projectiles to launch. But for now, 300 is a good place to start. The last thing we add to this is just as we saw when we saw in our player script, our player animation controller, we saw hit. Well, the other thing we saw was launch. So this is going to go ahead and set it so that our player like does the correct animation. Okay, so I'm going to save this. Now, this is going to be, even if you just copied and pasted the script that's in Schoology, what else do we have to do? We have to first of all go to our player character, and we need to go to right here. We see here projectile prefab. That's blank, man. We need to give the script a prefab so that when we call the player controllers launch, we need to make it so that it knows what to instantiate. So we go ahead here to prefabs, And then we're going to go here to our projectile, click and drag that. That side's good. Now, not done yet. Right now, if we called that launch, it's going to immediately collide with the player and it won't be a projectile. So we're going to go ahead. We need to add what's called a layer. So we're going to first of all go to the player character. We're going to go to layer and add layer. It doesn't really matter where you put it. I'm just going to do this capital P player. And then on layer 7, I'm going to do one here, projectiles. Okay, so 6 and 7 for me, it doesn't really matter where you put it, just as long as you have 2. We're going to go back to our player character. We're going to set its layer to player. And then we're going to go to our projectile prefab. So let's go to prefabs, projectile, and we're going to set the layer to projectiles. Now, we're going to enter the matrix. So we're going to go here to, this is odd, edit project settings. And then we're going to go ahead, and this is kind of a matter of taste in terms of like what you want to do with like down the road in terms of like how you want your gameplay. But at the very least, you're going to look here, and this is going to govern how different items on different layers, we just defined two, how they're going to interact with each other. So we want it so that we go here to where it says player, we're going to uncheck that box. So we're going to make it so that our projectiles don't collide with the player. They basically don't, in terms of the physics, we're going to make it so that they don't interact with each other. The other thing you could do was unclick projectiles, but that's going to be a matter of taste. Do you want projectiles to hit each other? There's no right or wrong answer. Anyways, good stuff. I wish you the best of luck.